Okay, this is a topic. There is something immensely thrilling when you can talk in a different set of sounds, and yet somewhere in the world, some people deem that normal and would understand you. Well, isn't that just amazing? My journey to learning languages started before I entered elementary school. Well, maybe even before that, since we've had an English native speaker coming to our place every week. I remember it wasn't always like this, that I loved the languages. I think it was because I got in contact with them such early on. They were something natural to me, like an extension of me. Sounds crazy, I know. Though I have to admit that the moment I started learning them at school, I unfortunately lost my passion for them and felt like I don't care. I was good at them, but the path to becoming fluent got postponed for a long time. It wasn't until my teen years that my interest grew again. I read my first book in English and started to listen to the language more and more in general. It all started to make sense. I was picking up so many phrases and idioms, and not just from books, from anywhere. I developed a habit of, yes, this might sound absolutely crazy, of talking to myself, enacting all sorts of conversations, sometimes using the book characters. Why? Because I simply loved to talk in the language, loved hearing it. Over time, the speaking became so natural to me that I realized I wasn't even translating it to my own language anymore. My thoughts were formed already in English. I remember when I realized that, I just felt completely at ease with the language, and talking or using it in general wasn't a stress anymore for me. The road wasn't through textbooks and grammar. I always sort of hated that. Besides, I believe the feeling for grammar comes with time. No. The path was through listening to people talk, reading fiction books I love, and practicing speaking on my own. But the process is just mesmerizing. You start with barely understanding few words, sometimes just sounds, and then gradually you develop the skill. Years ago, I started down the road of perfecting languages I already began at high school, and then picking up some completely new ones. Right now I'm working on my French and Italian being right behind. I haven't read a book in my mother tongue for years right now. Of course I still use it in my day-to-day life, but sitting down with a book written in a foreign language is just so much more intriguing for me. And today, I watched an entire movie in French for the first time ever, and I wasn't completely lost. I've tried already a couple of times before, ending in switching the language. So this was definitely a small victory for me. The moment when the language is not just a list of random words, when you realize that you are already capable of making sentences or leading a meaningful conversation, just perfect. Though the most compelling thing on foreign languages, well, at least for me, is how some of them weave together and use very similar words, or they are altered just a slightly bit, but you can still see that other word from another language, understanding that they are all derived from the same foundation. The moment you start to see that and realize how connected they all are is just mind-blowing. And these connections could be found anywhere. I literally mean it, anywhere. Just when you least expect it. Something will catch your eye and click. Oh, this is it. You see a sign on the street, a nicely done tag on some product, or understanding the meaning of some brand you before thought was just a luckily chosen set of letters that sounded well together. That always excites me so much when I discover such a thing. And the more languages you know, the more words and phrases you learn, it becomes easier. Easier to see these relations, and it reminds me of how fascinating this is, driving me to want to learn further. I know a lot of people are struggling with the fear of making mistakes. And I mean, like, hey, mistakes are human. They will happen, especially when learning a language. But you will likely never get better without trying and failing over and over and over again. So, go for it, even if it seems as an impossible task to complete. The reward of eventually speaking fluently a foreign language is well worth it.